Uche's heart slammed against her ribs as the footsteps grew louder. Descending the hidden stairway, the faint echo of polished shoes on metal steps filled the narrow, each tap like a countdown to her doom. Her trembling hands scrambled to pick up her phone, but the light had gone out, leaving the secret room cloaked in darkness. She pressed herself against the cold wall, her breath shallow, praying whoever was coming would not see her. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then a voice, calm, familiar, too familiar. Uche, her blood ran cold. It was Mr. Former. She squeezed her eyes shut, hoping it was a dream, but his eyes slanted through the darkness again, smooth at this time, almost mocking. You should not be here. Her legs refused to move, but she forced herself to step away from the wall. Her phone clutched like a weapon. Sir, I can explain, she stammered, her voice barely more than a whisper. The faint glow of his lighter sparked, illuminating his sharp features for a moment. The flame flackled across his face, casting shadows that made him look less like a man and nervous. He lighted a cigarette, inhaled and exhaled slowly, the smoking coiled in the air. You were always curious, he said, his voice steady. That curiosity has served you well until now. Uche shook her head, her tears threatening to fall. I didn't mean to. I just saw the key. I thought it was nothing. Nothing? His tone cut like a blade. You opened what was not meant for you. You entered a world you cannot understand. Her hands trembled. Please, I won't tell anyone. I swear, sir, I will forget everything. Mr. Former chuckled softly, but there was no warmth in the sound, only coldness. He stepped closer, the smoke from his cigarettes mixing with the stale air of the secret room. Forget? Do you think they will let you forget? Do you think I will? Behind him, another pair of footsteps echoed, a shadow appearing in the stairwell. A man in a dark suit, his face hidden, descended quietly and stood beside Ofoma. Uche's chest tightened. She realized then that her boss was not alone in this. He was part of something much bigger. She was trapped. Ofoma flicked ash from his cigarette and smiled thinly. I gave you a job, an office, respect, but you, he shook his head slowly. You couldn't resist digging where you had no right. A man beside him pulled something from his coat. The metallic glint under the dim light told her it was a gun. Uche's knee weakened. Her whole body screamed to run, but her legs wouldn't obey. Fear held her like a chain. And then, for the first time, she saw something flickered in Afoma's eyes. Not anger, not even disappointment, but pity. You should have stayed being a secretary, he whispered. The dim light of the cigarettes glowed between them, and the smoke coiled in the secret room like a veil. Uche's chest rose and fell rapidly, eyes fixed on the gun in the stranger's hand. Her voice cracked as she whispered, Please, don't kill me. Mr. Former exhaled slowly, a gaze steady, unreadable. Then he nodded at the man with the gun. Leave us. The man hesitated, but obeyed, retreating up the narrow steps until the sound of his footsteps faded away. The silence returned, heavier and suffocating. Afoma's eyes remained on Uche. Do you know what this place is? He asked quietly. He shook her head, trembling. This is the real office, he said. His voice was calm, steady, but each word struck like a blow. Dynamic corporate industrial is only a mask. What we do upstairs, files, meetings, contracts, or a performance. The true work happens here. Uche's mouth went dry. But the money, the files, what are they for? He smiled faintly, but it was the kind of smile that held no joy. Smuggling, laundering, deals politicians can never sign in the open. Weapons disguised as shipments of oil equipment. Payments routed through foreign banks so clean no auditor would ever trace them. Her knees nearly gave away. Weapons? She gasped. Yes, his eyes hardened. Power is not built with offices and suits alone. Uche, it is built with fear, with leverage, with control. That is why men come to me in the night. Why my phones rang without names. Why files are locked away. Abuja may look clean, but its veins run with shadows, and I'm one of those shadows. Her heart stormed wildly, her breathing shallowed. And me? Why? Why me? Why my picture here? Why watching me? For the first time, something almost human flickered in his eyes. Because you are choosing. Choosing? You think your uncle helped you get this job? Shook his head slowly. No, Uche. He only opened the door, and I'm the one who kept you. I saw your records, your sharp mind, your discipline. I knew you would notice things others ignored, and I needed someone close enough to watch and test. Alice pattered, her voice breaking. Test me? For what? To see if you could be trusted, to see if you were strong enough to step beyond the desk into this world. His words were low, deliberate, and tonight you proved it. You opened the drawer, you found the key, you came down here. That curiosity, that courage makes you either my greatest asset or my greatest threat. The weight of his words crushed her. She staggered back, her shoulders hitting the cold steel of one of the vote boxes. Her mind spun. She had thought she was safe, but all along she had been standing on the edge of something dark, something dangerous, without even knowing it. Tears blurred her vision. I don't want this, she whispered. I don't want any of this. Ofoma stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. You no longer have a choice. The words wrapped around her like chain, binding her to the shadows she had stumbled into. Uche's breath came in sharp as she stumbled backward, instigating around the hidden chamber. The weight of the shadows pressed in on her, but then something caught her eye. A stack of leather-bound files at the far corner of the table. Unlike the money and weapons, these files were neatly tied with ribbons, old and heavy with dust. Her hands trembled as she reached for one. She untied the ribbon, opened the first file, and froze. Her father's name stared back at her in bold letters. Mr. John Eze, landed property deed, Abuja. Her heart skipped. Her father, Mr. John Eze, a reputable man everyone in the community respected. A man whose deaths, always spoken of in harsh tone, had his name stamped across the very foundation of the company. She dug deeper, flipping through the files after file. Old projects, documents bore the same name, government contracts, property deeds, even company registration papers. Her hands shook violently as she uncovered the typewritten will. The ink had faded with time, but the signature at the bottom was clear. John Eze. Tears welled in her eyes. Papa, she whispered, her voice breaking, but the shock was only just beginning. One handwritten note at the bottom of the will revealed the darkest truth. Her father had been kidnapped and killed years ago, not by unknown criminals, but through the betrayal of his own brother and the man who carried out the deed. The one who buried it all under layers of silence was none other than his driver, Mr. Former. Uche's whole body stiffened. The air in the room grew heavier. The walls seemed to close in. This was no longer just about corruption or smuggling. It was personal. The very company where she sat, the office she worked in, the secrets she had uncovered, all of it had belonged to her father. A surge of anger and grief shot through her veins. She wanted to scream, to cry, to demand answers. But the sound of footsteps climbing back down the stairway snapped her back into the present. She stuffed the will, the deed, and the flash drive into her bag. Her bags fumbled, but the will grew sharp. She couldn't let them take this truth from her. You couldn't die here. The man with the gun reappeared, his shadow spilling into the room. Without thinking, she grabbed the golden pen from the table and slashed at his arm. The gun slipped from his grip and clattered under the metal box, which he bolted, racing up the steps, where the fire spread tight against her chest. Mr. Former furiously roared thunderous behind her. Uche, drop that bag now! But she didn't look back. She burst into his office, her heart pounding. She grabbed the bottle of wine from the side table and hurled it at the man blocking the doorway. Glass shattered. The man stumbled as she yanked the door open. She ran through the silent hallway of the building, her heels echoing against the tiles. The guards only stared, their blank expression like ghosts in the dim lights. Down the stairs, through the lobby, into the Abuja night. The air outside hit her face like a wave of freedom and fear. The streets were alive with traffic and headlights, but her chest was still heavy. Her mind still whirling. She held a taxi with desperation hands, almost throwing herself inside. Go, just drive, she cried. As the car sped into the chaos of the city, Uche clutched the fight on her chest. Now, he knew the truth. Her father had been the true owner of dynamic corporate industry. His own brother's jealousy had destroyed him, with Ofoma as the executioner and keeper of the secret. And now, by opening that drawer, he had uncovered everything. But she also knew one more thing. Ofoma would never stop hurting her. The taxi speed through the restless street of Abuja. Lights flashes across Uche's tear-stricken face. She sat coiled in the back seat, clutching the bag tight against her chest, as though it were her lifeline. Inside were the files, the landed property deeds, the old project, the company's registration papers, and the will that bear her father's name. Each page weighed more than stone, pressing against her ribs, crushing her spirit, yet igniting something piercing inside her. She closed her eyes, but the image refused to scroll across the documents. The truth about his death and the monstrous betrayal orchestrated by his own blood. Her mind returned to that one line in the will, scribbled in faded ink. If anything happens to me, that's Uche. Her throat tightened, tears spilling again. Papa, they killed you, and they stole everything. A driver glanced at her in the mirror but said nothing. Abuja's traffic roared on, the blaring horn, the shout of conductors, the rumble of Okadas waving dangerously through lines, but moves as though nothing had happened. Yet for Uche, everything had changed. When the taxi finally stopped outside her mother's flat, Uche fumbled for cash with trembling fingers, handed it to the driver, threw off the heels, and collapsed on the floor, the fires spilling across her like fallen leaves. Her eyes scanned the document again. She pieces the truth together, like Brooke. Mr. John Eze was the founder and rightful owner of dynamic corporate industry. His brother, consumed with jealousy, conspired to have him kidnapped and murdered. Mr. Homer, once a mere driver, helped bury the truth, stepping into the shadow to become the front man of the empire her father built. Yes, everyone had believed lies. Why she unknowingly worked as a secretary in the very company stolen from her bloodline. The pain twisted into something sharper. Anger. Ofoma, she whispered, her voice low and shaking. You think you own me? But you don't. This is my father's legacy, and I will take it back. She wasn't just a secretary anymore. She wasn't just a curious girl who opened the drunk drawer. She was the daughter of John Eze, and she carried both his name and his unfinished fights. But the danger was real. Somewhere in the grand office, under the sterile glow of his lamp, Mr. Former sat with his men. He knew now that his secret was uncovered. His eyes, sharp and calculating, burned with fury as he smoked one cigarette after another. She took the wheel, he muttered. The gunman, still nursing his wounded arm, shifted nervously. Oga, should we finish her before she talks? Ofoma's gaze darkened. Not yet. If she talks now, she has only words. But if she learns how to use those files, he slapped his face on the table, making the glass shake. Then she becomes a weapon. Silence fell on the room, heavy and dangerous. For the first time in years, Ofoma felt the ground trembled beneath his feet. He had built his empire on lies, buried his sins under layers of wealth and suits. But now, the daughters of the man he betrayed had cracked the coffin open. She would come back, he said finally, his voice like steel. She has her father's blood, and when she does, it will be war. Back in her flat, Uche sat on the floor surrounded by a scattered document. She wiped her tears. Her face hardened, fear still coiled in her stomach. But now, it sat beside something stronger, determination. She picked up her father's will and held it up her chest. The thought killing you was the end, she whispered. Her voice stayed there now, but it is only the beginning. Outside, Abuja paused with life, but inside her tiny room, a storm was gathering. The once silent secretary had awakened. She had the truth, she had the proof, and she had the fire of her father's blood burning with her. This was no longer just survival, this was revenge. The night was long and merciless. Uche did not sleep. She sat on the floor of her small apartment, surrounded by scattered files. Her laptop open, the glow casting sharp shadows across her face. Every tick of the clock reminded her that time was no longer her friend. Every second she delayed gave Ofoma a chance to strike. She read the document again and again, carefully this time. The way bear her father's final words, leaving everything, lands, contract, and the company to his family. And then was mentioned he was young when he died, too young to understand what happened. And the story had always been told to her in whispers. Armed robber, a terrible night, God's will. Now she knew the truth. It wasn't armed robbers. It wasn't the will of God. It was greed, blood, and betrayal. Her stomach rose with rage, but rage alone wouldn't protect her. She needed help. She thought of her uncle, the very man who orchestrated her father's death. No, he was the enemy. She thought of her mother, but dragging her into this storm would put her in danger. Her circle was small, almost empty. Then she remembered someone, Barrister Chika, her father's old friend, a man who had seen only a handful of time during her childhood. The loyalty had been whispered about in family conversation. He was a lawyer, still practicing somewhere in the city. If someone could validate this document and stand by her side, it would be him. Her hands trembled as she dialed a number she found scrambled in an old diary her mother had left behind. The phone rang twice before a calm, deep voice answered. Hello, Barrister, it's me, Uche, John's daughter. Silence on the line. Then a sharp inhaled. Uche, my God, it's been years. What's wrong? Why are you calling me at this hour? Her throat tightened. She wanted to spill everything, but fear strangled her word. Finally, she whispered, I found something about my father. They lied to us. He was killed, and the company, Dynamic Corporate Industrial, it was his. I have proof. Another pause. The weight of her words seems to travel through the phone. Listen to me, child. Barrister Chike said firmly. Don't speak of this to anyone else, not on the phone, not on the street. Meet me tomorrow. We will talk and we will protect these files. A flicker of hope warmed her chest. Yes, sir, she said. When she hung up, she exhaled, clutching the phone to her chest. For the first time since the nightmare began, she felt a silver of light. But in the shadow of his grand office, Mr. Afoma was already moving his pieces. He sat at his desk, the smoke from the cigarettes curling like a ghost around him. His men stood before him, tensed and waiting. She has the will, Afoma said coolly. She has the deeds, and she knows. What should we do? One of the men asked cautiously. He leaned back, tapping ash into the tray. We watch her. No rash move yet. It will drive her faster than. But if she tries to talk to anyone, lawyers, police, press will silence her permanently. His eyes narrowed, sharp as blade. John Eze thought he could build an empire. I buried him once. I will bury his daughter too, if he dares stand against me. The men nodded, but unease lingered in the air. They had seen the fire in Uche's eyes. She was not her father, but perhaps she carried something just as dangerous, his spirit. Back in her flat, Uche lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Her fear had not vanished, but it had been joined by something stronger. Resolved, she would meet Barrister Chika. She would gather help. She would reclaim her father's legacy. And as the night deepened, one thought repeated in her mind like a vow. They killed my father. They stole his empire. Now, I will make them pay.